Greetings and salutations, people, friends, internetonians. Welcome to the show. I am your host, Igor Siskoishkigo, and we will be talking about Igor today and hummus. What, you don't like the subject? Well, you can be a flea on a camel's ass. Or you could say, Happy Star Trek Day. Happy Star Trek Day, everybody. It is September 8th. That's Star Trek Day. We have a nice article. We're going to read about it later. How are you doing? How are things in your neck of the woods? I'm having a great time. I've got fun dripping off of me. Can't you see it? Just beaming in my eyes. I've been working on motorcycles for the past 3 days. Neck deep in grease and oil and dirt and grime and metal. Busted knuckles. I'm so close to being finished. I can taste it. I'll be up till about 3 o'clock in the morning finishing it up tonight. After the podcast. Podcast comes first. That ought to tell you where my loyalties lie. Podcast or transportation? So what's happening? Who's with me? I got somebody here. Hello, somebodies. Welcome to the show. I don't know where this accent is coming from. I'm just putting it out there. It feels natural. Could be a little weird. That's all right. That's all right. My mother told me I'd be weird. She said, boy, you're weird. I show you. So here I am. Weird. Weird and having a good time on Star Trek Day. I can't wait. I'm excited. I want to hear about Strange New Worlds. That's the show I'm waiting for. If they don't screw that up, it'll be all right. But I think they'll probably screw it up. And if they screw it up, I'll just quit watching. I'll go back to watching the old series and stay old, I guess. Nothing new for me, thanks. I don't like where your head's at. It seems like every show that comes out, it's progressively worse. And no, that wasn't a pun or a play on words. They are progressive, all right. Progressively worse. I've seen more progressive things than a Bugs Bunny cartoon. Anyway, should be an announcement today. I don't know if they actually did it or not, but it should be. Today would be the day they do it. Runtime or some such. Hey, April, how are you doing? Finally, someone speaks from the other side of the void. Pleasure to have you here, darling. Hey, there's a Kevo. What's happening, Kevin? Happy Star Trek Day. It's September 8th. That's Star Trek Day, so happy Star Trek Day. I am exhausted, but happy to be here. I've been pulling double duty and working and then staying up till midnight working on a bike. I've got one more time of doing that tonight, and hopefully I'll be finished. I'll probably be up till about 3 in the morning putting her back together, but I think I got it done. Just have to wait and find out. Put it back together and turn the key and see what happens. I have now bought every tool known to man that could ever work on a Harley Davidson. Ridiculous. Sorry, I was watching Sasquatch funny jokes. Where is he at? I don't know. Probably on his own show. Don't know. Hadn't heard from him today. But I'm glad you're enjoying it. I haven't gotten a message saying that he had a new show out. I guess I'll go by his channel and check it out after I'm done here. How are you doing this fine evening? Hope you're having a good day. I am absolutely dreading going out and getting greased up again, but it's got to be done. I'm much too lazy to be a mechanic, I can tell you that right now. I don't like it. I'd probably like it more if I had somebody to hang out with while I was doing it. But just sitting out there in the dark by myself, turning wrenches, not fun for me. But it needs to be done, and it's saving me a lot of money doing it, so. If I were to pay somebody to do what I've done to that bike, I'd be out a couple $1,000s for sure. So, it's worth knowing how to do. Oh, yeah. Ain't nothing cheap about a Harley Davidson. I bought it because it was American made and it lasts. It has a history, and if I need a part, I can find one because there's a Harley shop in every state in the United States, probably every town. So, I did not consider that you about need to be rich to own one. Yeah, it does suck a little bit. It's about like owning a boat. Boat stands for bust out another 1,000. Biker stands for breaks income, kills economy regularly. Or rhetorically. However you want to look at it. But it's a good ride when it runs good. Smooth, quiet, comfortable, fast. So, you get what you pay for, I guess. It's times like this, though, I wish I didn't have a job because then I could put more time into it. But if I don't have a job, I don't make any money. And if I don't make any money, I don't eat. So, gotta live the grown-up life occasionally. Don't have any more parents, so I can't be a rock and roller anymore. I ran out of parents. I used the last one up. But enough about me. Let's talk about Star Trek. Do you watch Star Trek? Do you like it? Are you into it? Do you dig it? Are you that kind of chick? Because it happens to be Star Trek Day today. And I've been kind of halfway watching YouTube trying to look and see if they have an announcement today about Strange New Worlds, which is the new show coming out probably in 2022. I'm hoping they'll get it this year, but I don't think they're going to make it. They've been working on it for the past 2 years up in Canada. And it's supposed to be a really good show, which is contrary to everything else they put out in the last 10 years, which is garbage. Utter garbage. They've never even watched Star Trek, let alone read a book. The most unintelligible science fiction known to man. Back when I was a kid, science fiction was thought-provoking and interesting and would raise ideas about the future and about the world and about humanity, and you could rest with it for a few days or weeks thinking about it after you saw a movie. Now, it's just like pew, 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 bang, 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 explosion, we're done. Dumb. It's not good at all. But all of the fans have complained rhetorically for the past 2 years and very loudly. So I think they listened, and this new show is supposed to be more like the old shows. So we'll see. If they don't screw it up, it'll be fantastic. But they'll probably screw it up. But I'm holding hope out. I'm giving one more chance. We went through Discovery, that was garbage. We went through Picard, that was double garbage. Lower Decks, kind of garbage. So they got one more shot. And if they can do it, then I'll keep watching. If they can't do it, I'm done. I'll just watch reruns of the old stuff like an old man and holler at these kids to stay off my lawn. You kids quit playing that loud music and stay off my lawn. Quit whacking off in the tool shed. Hey, somebody talk to me. What do I look like? A talking head? I'm probably going to cut out at about 9:30 because I do have some work to get done before daylight. And I have to work tomorrow, so I got to sleep at some point, which will probably be from about 4 o'clock in the morning till about 7 o'clock in the morning. And then up and at 'em and going for it again. And then I get to see my son tomorrow, so that'll be an extra hour on the day before I can get home and go to bed again. So, not that I'm complaining. I wouldn't trade that for nothing, but, you know. Just talking. What you been up to today? What's going on in your life? Tell me something. Speak to me. Talk to me. Hey, there's a Caucasian. It's raining and has been most of the day. Well, it's felt like it was going to rain all day today, but it hasn't rained here. So maybe it'll rain tomorrow. How are you doing, Caucasian? Are you up and going? Are you filmed out yet? Are you just getting started? You'll get the hang of it. I hate filming myself. I don't mind filming. I hate setting everything up. The internet is spotty. Well, get a maxi pad and keep going. That's what I do. If my internet was spotting, that's what I do. I don't know why my nose itches so much when I'm talking. Here's a pro tip. When you're on the camera, don't touch your nose. I think having that knowledge in the back of my head makes me touch my nose. If nobody ever said anything, I probably wouldn't do it. But happy Star Trek Day, by the way. It is September 8th. That is Star Trek Day, so happy Star Trek Day. We'll talk about it in a little while. Hey, we are hanging out at Olive Garden with the man CJ. Well, hello, and have some spaghetti. Hope you guys are enjoying the food and the camaraderie. I am talking to you, and then I'm going to be talking to my motorcycle till about 4 o'clock this morning. Putting her back together, getting her ready to roll. One more time. I still got 2 or 3 things I need to get for it, but it will run in its current condition, just not as good as I'd like it to. walked 2 miles and filmed a storm and tried to catch some lightning. I'll check the footage in a while. Well, that's wonderful. Lightning is hard to catch on camera. You got to have special lenses and stuff. But maybe you'll get it. Maybe that Canon can do it. By the way, April was asking about you earlier. She said you had some funny jokes. Do you have some new stuff up? I hadn't gotten any notices that you've done anything new, but she said she was watching funny jokes. The last thing I saw had no jokes in it, so you tell me. What are you doing with your time? Are you telling funny jokes? Are you doing it with an accent? I am posting around 3 days. 3 a day. Sweet. Well, I haven't gotten any notices. You need to check on that. I'll go by after I'm done here and check you out. Whatever you do, 3 a day may be excessive, but it's fine for right now because you're just getting your channel populated. But whenever you set your schedule, be consistent. If you go on at 6 o'clock, do it every time you go on at 6 o'clock. That way the algorithm will pick it up and people will get used to it. Yep, jokes. Terrible jokes. I like terrible jokes. Terrible jokes are funnier than funny jokes. Catch up. See what I mean? Well, I hope it's going smoothly for you. Last time I looked, you had about 14 or 15 subscribers. Good job. Keep on rocking, my brother. Sorry I haven't been more attentive. I've been kind of busy. Just shorts, but I'm getting a few views each. Good. That will grow. Pretty soon you'll outdo me. Kind of easy to outdo a fundamentalist right-wing chicken-eating Baptist, whatever. Christian fundamental, whatever. I can't remember it. It was funny when somebody else said it. Anyway, I'm a little spacey today because I've got very little sleep the past couple of days. Been out working on my bike. I keep telling you about that, but I don't know if anybody's listening. Anyway, I just about got her done. I'm buttoning up everything now. But I got a starter issue. Starter just spins and it's not engaging, and I think I put something in backwards, so I got to tear it back down and flip it around and put it back together and see what works. That's the life of a fool, singing out loud. I did work today, and it's a good day. Went by fast. I thought it was about lunchtime, and I looked at the clock, and it was 4 o'clock, and I was like, whoa, that happened fast. I guess I just spaced out and concentrating on what I was doing, and time just flew by. But I've got several irons in the fire this week. I got to pay my land taxes. I got to finish my motorcycle. I got to visit with my son. Oh yeah, I got to pay my light bill. I was supposed to do that earlier, and I forgot about it, so I got to remember to do that when I get off of here. I pay my light bill online, so I can do it at any time. Hey, there's a Diego. What's happening, my friend? Happy Star Trek Day. It's September 8th, so that is Star Trek Day, so happy Star Trek Day. We'll talk about it later. Are you into Star Trek? Do you watch it? Do you know what I'm talking about? What's your favorite one? Great to bear. I'm sorry. Great to buy. Great to be here. Hello. Great to be here too. Oh no. What's the sad news? What happened? I always hate bad news. Abortion has been legalized in Mexico. Well, that's not sad news. It's terrible news, and it's par for the course. They're trying to legalize it everywhere. Voyager Star Trek Light. Yeah. Is that your favorite? Is that what you're into? Star Trek Voyager? I'm the original series man myself. Although I'm holding out hope for this new one coming up. And I dig the Orville, which is more Star Trek than any Star Trek has Star Trek in the last 5 or 6 Star Treks. I think that made sense. We'll say a prayer for Mexico. My whole family and many good Mexican citizens are heartbroken because of how many innocent babies will be ripped to shreds in their mother's wombs. Yeah, that's a terrible thing to think about. I watched them all except Deep Space Nine. I watched Deep Space Nine. That was a pretty good show. It could be argued that it's not necessarily Star Trek because it's more angsty. It's got more violence in it and stuff, but I think it's thought-provoking and good on most parts. It gets a little heady at times, a little, but for the most part, it's a pretty good show. It's a product of its time for sure. But the new iteration of Star Trek, Discovery and Picard and Lower Decks and now Prodigy and Strange New Worlds, so far has been utter garbage. And the 3 movies, by the way. Yes, I know they seemed like they were good movies when you watched them, but when you think about it, they fall apart because they're just cheap imitations of much better movies long, long ago. Could you give us some words of consolation, Jake? Anybody here? April, Caucasian, Kevin? Yes, they're all here. I just couldn't. And Enterprise had such a terrible theme song. Hey, I like that theme song. I may be the only one, but I kind of dig it. And yes, Diego, I'll give you some words of consolation. If you happen to get a girl pregnant, marry her and raise a family and love your children. That's why we have those things dangling between our legs, is to procreate. It's for the glory of God. Anybody that would take a life of an unborn child is a murderer and should and will pay a price for it. It's never good. It's never good for the mother. It's never a positive thing. And they always end up feeling guilty about it later, and they should. And God will take care of that one way or another. On a lighter note, those babies don't have to suffer this world. They get to go instantly back to the Father where they came from, and they never get to see this place. Maybe those souls are too good for this place. Maybe God doesn't want them to be here, so he takes them back in a hurry. Who knows? I don't know why people do the things they do, but know this. The only time an abortion is proper is when the mother's life is on the line. I'm not saying that it's good, and it's definitely the mother's choice, but that's the only time I dig it. And that's because you can have more babies, you can't have more mothers. That is a rough topic. I didn't bring it up, but I'm doing what I was asked, and that is to say something of consolation. And that consolation is God has his hands on everything. And live or dead, sooner or later we all go to him. Those babies get to go to him faster. So you should rejoice in that knowledge, not be sad for it. That being said, it's going to happen. People are going to do it. And as long as they're going to do it, they're going to do it because they were taught that they can do whatever the hell they want to do. That's the problem. It's not the act, it's what happens before that. It's in the rearing. So when you have a child, teach that child the value of life. And that's all I can say about it. It's April. Taking my phone isn't getting a signal. Hello, Diego, Sasquatch, April, and Kevin. Well, hello, April. Anyway, things happen. Life sucks. Let's talk about Star Trek. Are you into it? Do you dig it? What's your favorite show? Who do you like? Who's your favorite captain? Who's your favorite Star Trek star? Who's your favorite Star Trek guest star? Mine is Ricardo Montalban. Yes, that's right. The plane, boss, the plane. That guy. Not that guy, the guy he was talking to. Ricardo Montalban. The biggest chest in television. And it's a real chest. Originally aired in the original series episode Space Seed. And brought back as a antagonist for the Wrath of Khan. Tron! Archer and T'Pol. Well, T'Pol for sure. Now that's a Vulcan. That's a hot Vulcan right there. I used to love to watch her on television. She is just everything pretty to me. Except for the haircut. Haircut sucked. But in real life, she's a knockout. So, if you're wondering why I'm talking about Star Trek and you just joined us, it's because today is September the 8th, Star Trek Day. Star Trek is an American science fiction media franchise originating from the 1960s television series Star Trek, created by Gene Roddenberry. That series, now often known as the original series, debuted on September 8th, that's today, 1966, and aired on 3 seasons on NBC. It followed the voyages of the Starship, the USS Enterprise, a space exploration vessel built by the United Federation of Planets in the 23rd century, on a mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before. In creating Star Trek, Roddenberry was inspired by C.S. Forester's Horatio Hornblower series of novels and Jonathan Swift's 1726 novel Gulliver's Travels, and the 1956 film Forbidden Planet, and television westerns such as Wagon Train. The Star Trek canon includes the original series, 9 spin-off television series, a film franchise. Further adaptations also exist in several other media outlets. After the conclusion of the original series, the adventures of its characters continued in a 22-part series, Star Trek the Animated Series, and 6 feature films. A television revival began in the 1980s, saw 3 sequel series and a prequel, Star Trek The Next Generation, following the crew of a new Starship Enterprise a century after the original series. Star Trek Deep Space Nine and Star Trek Voyager, set in the same era as The Next Generation. And the ever infamous It's Been a Long Time Getting From There to Here Enterprise, set before the original series. In the early days of human interstellar travel, the adventures of the Next Generation crew continued in 4 additional feature films. That's 10 films. And now up to 14 or 13. In 2009, the film franchise underwent a reboot. Some might call it a bad reboot. See what I did there? Creating an alternate continuity known as the Kelvin timeline. 3 films have been set in this continuity. The newest Star Trek television revival began in 2017, and those include Star Trek Discovery, bleh, Star Trek Picard, bleh, Star Trek Short Treks, meh, Star Trek Lower Decks, streaming exclusively on digital platforms, and at least 2 additional television series are in development as we speak. Star Trek Strange New Worlds and Star Trek Prodigy, which is a Nickelodeon, another animated series. And it looks to be ridiculous because there are absolutely no humans in that show. They're all aliens, and none of them are Star Trek aliens, or at least they don't appear to be Star Trek aliens. And there's one hologram of Catherine Janeway, reprised by Kate Mulgrew. The original actress who played Janeway is reprising her role as an animated hologram. She's already animated. Why be a hologram also? Who the hell knows? Star Trek has been a cult phenomenon for decades. Fans of the franchise are called Trekkies or Trekkers, depending on whether or not you're cool. The franchise spans a wide range of spin-offs, including games and figurines and novels and toys and comic books. From 1998 to 2008, there was a Star Trek-themed attraction in Las Vegas, and at least 2 museum exhibits of props from the show travel the world yearly. The constructed language Klingon was created for the franchise. Several parodies have been made of Star Trek. In addition, viewers have produced several fan productions. As of December 1998, the franchise had generated, get this, $7.8 billion in revenue, making Star Trek one of the highest grossing media franchises of all time. Take that, Star Wars. Star Trek is noted for its cultural influence. Beyond works of science fiction, the franchise is also noted for its progressive civil rights stances. Blah. The original series includes one of the first multiracial casts on U.S. television, and that's true enough. And the first multiracial kiss, by the way. Concepts and settings. As early as 1964, Gene Roddenberry drafted a proposal for the science fiction series that would become Star Trek. Although he publicly marketed it as a Western in outer space, a so-called wagon train to the stars, he privately told friends that he was modeling it on Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels, intending each episode to act on 2 levels, as a suspenseful adventure story and as a morality tale. Most Star Trek stories depict the adventure of humans and aliens who serve in Starfleet, the spaceborne humanitarian and peacekeeping armada of the United Federation of Planets. The protagonists have altruistic values and must apply these ideals to difficult dilemmas. Many of the conflicts and political dimensions of Star Trek are allegories of contemporary cultural realities. The original series addressed issues of the 1960s, just as later spin-offs have tackled issues of their respective decades. Issues depicted in the various series include war and peace, the value of personal loyalty, authoritarianism, imperialism, class warfare, economics, racism, religion, human rights, sexism, feminism, and the role of technology. Roddenberry stated, by creating a new world with new rules, quote, I could make statements about sex, religion, Vietnam, politics, and intercontinental missiles. Indeed, we did make them on Star Trek. We were sending messages, and fortunately, they all got by the network. If you talked about purple people on a far-off planet, they, being the television network, never really caught on. They were more concerned about cleavage, they would actually send a sensor down to the set to measure a woman's cleavage to make sure too much of her breast wasn't showing. Roddenberry intended the show to have a progressive political agenda. Not true, by the way. That was very conservative for those times. I don't know why they're calling it progressive now. It was called conservative back then. Reflective of the emerging counterculture culture of the youth movement. Though he was not fully forthcoming to the networks about this. He wanted Star Trek to show what humanity might develop into if it would learn from the lessons of the past, most specifically by ending violence. An extreme example is the alien species known as the Vulcans, who had a violent past but learned to control their emotions, or suppress them, as it were. Roddenberry also gave Star Trek an anti-war message. Also not true. Have you ever seen The Balance of Terror? Come on, people who wrote articles. Watch some Star Trek. And depicted the United Federation of Planets as an ideal, optimistic version of the United Nations. His efforts were opposed by the network because of concerns over marketability. They opposed Roddenberry's insistence that Enterprise have a racially diverse crew. That's also true because they did not like the fact that there was a Russian and a black chick on there and a Chineseman. They didn't like that at all. To be continued. Let me check in with the chat and see how y'all are faring. What do you think of the conversation so far? Yeah. To Paul. No God, no. In Star Trek, I remember Data, played by Brent Spiner. He is my favorite actor. My friend Sheriko thought that it was Christopher Walken who played him. Well, I could see the resemblance. My dad loved Star Trek. You got a smart dad. Smart dad. Star Trek is awesome. He used to watch it. I still watch it because I love it. I grew up on it. I cut my teeth on it. I still remember being in the 8th grade the first time somebody came to me with a Star Trek comic book and said, "Here, watch, look at this." And I was enthralled. The very next week I went to like a role-playing thing, a Star Trek meeting where everybody dressed up in their costumes and came to somebody's house and they had Romulan ale and talked about Star Trek. It was fabulous. It spoke in Klingon and Vulcan. I loved it. I never really got into the wearing the uniforms and stuff, but I am definitely a Trekkie. Trekkie because I'm cool. I know Caucasian. I admire Christopher Walken too. Oh, I missed one. Huh? Christopher Walken is Data? That's brilliant. I wish. Hey, Captain, I'll stab you in the eye with a soldering iron. Terrible Christopher Walken. He is my favorite character in the series. He's a pretty cool character indeed. Nothing against Brent Spiner. Indeed. But yeah, if you could get Christopher Walken for that role, hell yeah. And Bruce Willis is Captain Picard. Yippee-ki-yay, Mother Klingon. I've lost my mind clearly. You should read an article called Difference Between Liberals and Leftists. I'm not talking about that today. I'm talking about Star Trek. Maybe next Wednesday I'll read something such. Indeed, Walken knows how to act. So much so, it looks like he isn't acting. Literally, looks like he means it. He probably does. He's probably serious about a lot of things. He was present when the guy that played number 2 in The Spy Who Shagged Me, Austin Powers, I can't remember his name. Anyway, he killed his wife, Natalie Woods, by throwing her overboard a boat. Christopher Walken was there when he did it. That'll tell you something about Christopher Walken. Indeed, Walken knows how to act. Oh, I read that. Jericho has pretty bad eyesight. Really? Terrifying. That is why he confused Spiner with Walken. Oh, I understand that. But as said, there are some resemblances. Yes. It is kind of interesting. I never really thought about it before, but I can see what you're saying. Oh, I understand. I know you wasn't telling me to read it. You were just suggesting it. I'll get to it. I am looking for articles, and I do take suggestions. I just was in the middle of reading something when I read that, so I was just responding. Sorry if it sounded like I was being snappy. I wasn't. I didn't mean it that way anyway. You read it whenever you have a chance. I will. I'll read it for you. Let's do it next Wednesday. Just remind me of it because I'll try to write a note, but I may forget because I got a lot going on right now. But today is Star Trek Day. It only happens once a year. This is the day that it debuted on NBC in 1966. And it's kind of interesting. So I thought we'd talk about that for a change, something different. And everybody's seen Star Trek. If you grew up in the 80s and 90s, you couldn't miss it. It was on every channel. One of the very first television shows to go into syndication while it was still on the air. Because, and this is a little bit of trivia you may not know, little backroom trash, they were trying to get the big networks to buy Star Trek, and they didn't want it. Nobody wanted it because every network already had a space program such as Lost in Space or something such. So in a brilliant move, Roddenberry offered it as syndication to local channels at a discount, selling it for just half of the advertisement. So back then, a commercial would be either 30 or 60 seconds, and there'd be 5 of them between segments. So what he did was, the first half of the show, he would let the local network keep the money from the advertising, and the second half of the show, he would keep the money from advertising. So he split the profits with them, local television channels. And that was a stroke of genius because it ended up making him like 10 times the money that he would have made selling it outright to a network. So much so that they launched a network on Star Trek called UPN, and it ran for like 15 years or something like that, and was a rival to NBC, the big three, ABC, NBC, and CBS. And then there was UPN. Based on the sales of Star Trek alone, they were able to start a new network that rivaled the big three. And the only reason it went away is because of the act that Bill Clinton wrote in law when he was in office, and it kind of broke up the big companies like Ma Bell and AT&T and Comcast, and all those got broke up into smaller companies. CBS got broke up. Paramount used to be part of CBS. Now it is again, but they just remerged this year. So because of that law he wrote, that ended effectively UPN. So it went away. But it was started based on Star Trek sales alone. And here's a little thing. Almost every movie that has come out in the last 20 years has some reference to Star Trek in it. It's actually pretty fun to play that game and see how many times you can pick up on it. It's almost every movie. There's either in the background a television playing Star Trek, or there's somebody will say a line from Star Trek. It's hilarious, but it's everywhere. That is one of the most influential television shows that ever existed. In fact, the reason we have cell phones is because of Star Trek. The reason we have automated computers and automated cars and cars that speak to us is because of Star Trek. It's amazing. I've always viewed Star Trek as a cosmic horror. It is kind of a horror. It's not an adventure show at all. It is, a lot of the original series episodes are horror based, or at least suspense. Maybe not horror, but suspense at least. Liberal has nothing to do with leftism. That's true. Well, it does have something to do with it because that's where it came from. But it's the more extreme side of liberalism. True liberals are more conservative than they care to admit. But the left has taken this term to give their evil agenda and members or supporters a name. Yeah, true. I don't remember that episode, but I'll go back and watch and see if I can find it. All right, on with the article. April, Kev, you guys enjoying this? In early 1964, Roddenberry presented a brief treatment for a television series to Desilu Production that was owned by Lucille Ball and her husband, Desi Arnaz. And they owned that television studio for a while. Calling it A Wagon Train to the Stars, Desilu worked with Roddenberry to develop the treatment into a script, which was then pitched to NBC. NBC paid to make a pilot, The Cage, starring Jeffrey Hunter as Enterprise Captain Christopher Pike. NBC rejected The Cage, but the executives were still impressed with the concept and made the unusual decision to commission a second pilot, Where No Man Has Gone Before. That's when they replaced Jeffrey Hunter with William Shatner to become Captain Kirk, and the rest is history. They made the show lighter and less heady, more action-oriented and less thinking, and it became a hit. While the show initially enjoyed high ratings, the average ratings of the show at the end of its first season dropped to the 52nd out of 94 programs. Unhappy with the show's ratings, NBC threatened to cancel the show during its second season. The show's fan base, led by BJ Trimble, is that what her actual name is, conducted an unprecedented letter-writing campaign, petitioning the network to keep the show on the air. So much so that NBC was terrified that they were going to get more letters. They couldn't keep up with them all. NBC renewed the show, but moved it from its prime time to Friday nights, the death slot. That's where TV shows go to die. Any show that's about to go out, you can see it at Friday night at 8. It substantially reduced its budget. In protest, Roddenberry resigned as producer and reduced his direct involvement with Star Trek, which led to Fred Freeberger becoming producer of the show's third and final season, which some say is its worst season. It got kind of ridiculous there at the end. Despite another letter-writing campaign, NBC canceled the series after 3 seasons and 79 episodes. The rebirth, post the original series. 1969 to 1991. After the original series was canceled, Desilu, which by then had been renamed Paramount Television, licensed the broadcast syndication rights to help recoup the production losses. Returns began in the late 1969, and by the late 70s, the series aired in over 150 domestic and 60 international markets. This helped Star Trek develop a cult following, greater than its popularity during its original run. This show got popular after it was canceled. One sign of the series growing in popularity was the first Star Trek convention, which occurred January 21st through the 23rd, 1972 in New York City. Although the original expectation was that only a few hundred fans would attend, several thousand turned up. Star Trek fans continue to attend similar conventions worldwide on a yearly basis to this day. The series' newfound success led to the idea of reviving the franchise. Filmation, along with Paramount Television, produced the first post-original series show, Star Trek the Animated Series, featuring all of the original cast with the exception of Chekhov to reprise their roles. It ran on NBC for 22 half-hour episodes over 2 seasons on Saturday mornings from 73 to 74, the year I was born. Although short-lived, typical for an animated production, in that time slot during that period, the series garnered the franchise's only Emmy Award in a Best Series category, specifically Outstanding Entertainment for Children. Later Emmy Awards for the franchise would be in technical categories. Paramount Pictures and Roddenberry began developing a new series called Star Trek Phase 2. What's that, you say? I've never heard of such a television show. That's because it never actually made it to television. They scrapped it in lieu of the motion picture. In May of 1975, in response to the franchise's newfound popularity, work on the series ended when the proposed Paramount television service folded. That's not entirely true. They did fold and it did end, but they were already making plans to do Star Trek the Motion Picture before that happened. Following the success of the science fiction movies Star Wars and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Paramount adapted the planned pilot episode of Phase 2 into the feature film Star Trek the Motion Picture. The film opened in North America on December 7th, 1979, with mixed reviews from critics. The film earned $139 million, and that is 1979 money. That's like $5 billion today's money, just so you know. Below expectations, but enough for Paramount to create a sequel. I bet. The studio forced Roddenberry to relinquish creative control to future sequels. The success of the sequel, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, revised the fortunes of the franchise. While the sequel grossed less than the first movie, Wrath of Khan, lower production costs made it net more profit. Paramount produced 6 Star Trek feature films between 79 and 91. Each featuring the original series in their original roles. Original series cast in their original roles. In response to the popularity of Star Trek feature films, the franchise returned to television with Star Trek The Next Generation in 1987. Paramount chose to distribute it as a first-run syndication show rather than a network show. Next Generation was a century after the original series and followed the adventures of a new Starship Enterprise with a new crew. Following Star Trek the Motion Picture, Roddenberry's role changed from producer to creative consultant with minimal input to the films while being heavily involved in the creation of The Next Generation. Basically, they invented The Next Generation to keep Gene Roddenberry busy so they could make movies without his interference. Roddenberry died on October 24, 1991, giving executive producer Rick Berman control of the franchise. Star Trek had become known to those within Paramount as the franchise because of its great success and recurring role as a tentpole for the studio when other projects failed. The Next Generation had the highest ratings of any Star Trek series and became the most syndicated show during the last years of its original 7-season run. In response to The Next Generation's success, Paramount released a spin-off series, Deep Space Nine, in 1993. While never as popular as The Next Generation, the series had sufficient ratings for it to last 7 seasons. In January 1995, a few months after The Next Generation ended, Paramount released a 4th television series, Star Trek Voyager. Star Trek saturation reached a peak in the mid-90s with Deep Space Nine and Voyager airing concurrently, and 3 of the 4 Next Generation-based feature films released in 94, 96, and 98 respectively. By 1998, Star Trek was Paramount's most important property. The enormous profits of the franchise funded much of the rest of the studio's operations. Voyager became the flagship show of the new United Paramount Network, UPN. Also, not true. That was the show Enterprise. Wonder why they got that wrong. And thus, the first major network Star Trek series since the original. After Voyager ended, UPN produced Enterprise, a prequel series. Enterprise did not enjoy the high ratings of its predecessors, and UPN threatened to cancel it after the series' third season. Fans launched a campaign reminiscent of the one that saved the third season of the original series. Paramount renewed Enterprise for a fourth season, but moved it to Friday night's death slot, just like the original series. Enterprise's ratings dropped during this time slot. Well, I wonder why. It's called the death slot for a reason. And UPN canceled Enterprise at the end of its fourth season. Enterprise aired its final episode on May 13th. A fan group, Save Enterprise, attempted to save the series and tried to raise $30 million to privately finance a fifth season for Enterprise. Though the effort garnered considerable press, the fan drive failed to save the series. The cancellation of Enterprise ended an 18-year continuous production run of Star Trek programming on television. The poor box office performance in 2002 of the film Nemesis cast an uncertain light upon the future of the franchise. Paramount relieved Berman, the franchise producer, of control of Star Trek. And then we came to J.J. Abrams' reboot, or some might call it a bad reboot. See what I did there? To be continued. How's everybody enjoying the conversation? Are you digging it? Are you into this? Tell me about it. Tell me what you're thinking. La-di-da-di-da. I'm just reading over the comments to see if I missed anything. The communicator is why flip phones happen. Yes, exactly. Why phones in general happened. The guy that invented the brick phone, the first cellular phone, said that he was trying to invent the technology that would give us communicators. And he did. No man think about the thing that must take place behind the scenes. Yeah. I hate they showed the Kobayashi Maru story. I know they should have left that. Nobody needed to see that. That was perfect in your mind. Nobody needed to see how Jim Kirk cheated. And they didn't show it. They just showed him eating an apple like he did something, you know. Pew. Eat an apple. It'll make you look like an asshole. You're right. They shouldn't have shown that. There's many things like the dice in Star Wars that showed in one scene in the original series. They gave in the movie Solo an explanation as to where those dice came from. That's how far back they reached and tried to answer every unanswered question. Don't do that. That's not how stories are told. We don't need to see those things. It was better as a story always, a bit different each telling. Yeah. I'm with you, buddy. Yeah, these new people, they've never even read a book. They have no idea what science fiction is or what it should be. They, furthermore, have absolutely no idea what Star Trek is all about and why people love it. They don't understand. They don't get it. We don't want to see people getting murdered and their eyes getting pulled out and dead Captain Picards turning into robots and things like that. We don't want to see that stuff. We don't want to see space orchids, giant space orchids that have no reason for existence. It's ridiculous. They need to read a book. Here's a thought, and this is a thought by a guy named Robert Burnett. You ever listen to him? He's got a great podcast, and he talks a lot about Star Trek. And I watch him regularly. But he said, why don't you take The Hunt for Red October? That's basically a Star Trek story. adapt it, and then make that as a movie. That would be a fantastic Star Trek movie with that premise. The bad guy, you could say a Klingon, is piloting a brand new spaceship towards the Enterprise. It has secret technology on board that makes it nearly indetectable, even more so than the cloaking device. Or you could set it back then when they got the cloaking device. And little do we know, the Klingon is actually going to defect and give that technology to the Federation. But we can't tell because it's a bad guy. So we have the other Klingons telling us that he's lost his mind, he's gone rogue, and he's headed straight for the Federation to kill us all. And there's one guy, one analyst, that says, no, I know this guy. I've met him before. He's a good guy. He's coming to defect. That's a great premise for a Star Trek show. Why don't they do that instead of this garbage they're making nowadays? It was a secret shared among Starfleet captains and admirals. There you go. Some things are better unspoken. The reason Alfred Hitchcock was so popular and the reason his movies are so good is because he does not show you the violence and the gore. He leaves it up to your imagination. He'll show you a shadow of what's going on, but he'll never show you what's actually going on. And in that, it's like reading a book. Nothing is better than your imagination. No movie no CGI, no effect can do better than your imagination can. That's why The Exorcist was such a good movie, because it got in your head. You thought about it after you were done watching the movie, and it creeped you out at night, if you have any faith at all. Though Kirk admitted that he cheated. Yeah. Basically, that is the story. Kirk found a winnable situation in a no-win situation. He bent it to his will. That's all you need to know, that he did not accept fate. He changed the parameters of the program so that he would win, even though you're not supposed to be able to win. That's what makes the Kobayashi Maru a valuable lesson. Nobody needs to see it happen. Nobody needs to see all of the details, because that takes away from the mystique of the story. In that, sometimes what you imagine is way better than anything you can ever see. Did I lose everybody? Kevin, April, y'all still with me? Diego, are you still here? Are y'all utterly disgusted by Star Trek talk? I was hoping you'd be into it. If you're not, that's okay. I tried something, it didn't work. We'll do something different later. It is Wednesday after all. Chit chat. I won't go into all the games and stuff. In 2005, Paramount's parent company, Viacom, split into two companies. CBS Corporation, the owner of the CBS television studios, and Viacom, owner of Paramount Pictures. CBS owned the film brand, while Paramount owned the film library and would continue the film franchise. Paramount was the first company to try to revive the franchise by hiring a new creative team to reinvigorate in 2007. Writers Roberto Orci and Alex Kurtzman, two thumbs down, and producer J.J. Abrams had the freedom to reinvent the feel of the franchise, thus killing it. That's a bad move. None of those guys were actual Star Trek fans. They were all about the money, so they never even cared what Star Trek was about, which is why the movies sucked and the TV shows made by Alex Kurtzman sucked. The only one that may have been involved in Star Trek is Roberto Orci, and he quit, probably because of Kurtzman and Abrams' direction. The team created the franchise's 11th film, Star Trek, 2009. The film featured a new cast portraying the crew of the original show. Star Trek was a prequel to the original series set in an alternative timeline, later named the Kelvin timeline. This gave the film and sequels freedom from the need to conform to the franchise canonical timeline, and minimizing the impact these films would have on CBS's portion of the franchise. And that's what it's all about right there. They changed the timeline so they could continue to make money on toys. That's it in a nutshell. Only nobody buys the new toys because they all suck. The 11th Star Trek film's marketing campaign targeted non-fans, stating in the film's advertisement that this is not your father's Star Trek, which is the thing you should not have done. Star Trek has never been an action franchise like Star Wars. It is a niche franchise for niche audiences. There is a certain type of person that likes Star Trek. It will never be a billion-dollar market. That's not what it's for. It's heady and high-minded. We want depth and quality in our Star Trek. And we are the people that buy the toys and the comic books and the movies. We are the people you need to be catering to, not non-fans who don't buy models and comic books. The film earned considerable critical and financial success, grossing in inflated dollars more box office sales than any previous Star Trek film. The plaudits include the franchise's first Academy Award for makeup. You know, those awful, awful Klingons. 2 sequels were released. The first sequel, Star Trek Into Darkness, premiered summer of 2013. While the film was not as successful in the North American box office as its predecessor, internationally, in terms of box office receipts, Into Darkness is the most successful of the franchise. The 13th film, Star Trek Beyond, was released July 22nd, 2016. The film had many pre-production problems, and its script went through several rewrites. While receiving positive reviews, Star Trek Beyond disappointed in the box office. And that's as far as we're going to go with this article. And now we're up to present day and the television shows, and we'll talk about them another time. All right. Doing great, Jake. Thank you, Diego. I haven't commented because I'm listening attentively. My dad used a flip phone until 2016. He's a smart dude. I said that already. Smart dude. If I had the money, I'd get me a flip phone and be done with it. In the comics, it was only ever whispered and never written down. Amen. I liked Firefly more. Brown coats forever. Well, there's something to be said for some Firefly. I did enjoy that show, but I can't say I liked it more. I liked it equally, but Star Trek is a little more in depth. Firefly only lasted 1 season, and we never got any more of it, of any kind, except for comic books. They should have made more movies. They should have done something. There's a lot of fans that would prop that up, and I don't know why they didn't. It's like they're shooting themselves in the foot. The Exorcist was made in 1973. Yes, it was, and it was a great film back in 1973. It doesn't really hold up because of technology and all, but for what it was, that movie was effective. It certainly rattled my cage. I didn't sleep for a week after I saw that movie. All right, boys and girls. I do have some mechanicing I need to get done before morning. So I'm going to cut it a little short tonight. The scene where the priests perform the exorcism on the girl is chilling. Yes. More chilling is when the devil jumped into the priest and he jumped out the window. That's chilling. Or Pazuzu or whoever it is. As far as I'm concerned, it was the devil himself. Yeah, it literally got in your head. Yeah. Firefly is more like what Roddenberry originally pitched. Yes. And it was a great concept. It was shiny. I really dig that show. I really enjoyed it. And if they'd have made 10 seasons of it, I'd have watched every one of them. But they aired it out of order. They shot it in the foot from day one. It was never going to make it. They did it as a favor to get Nathan Fillion because he is a star, and they knew it. But, and also Joss Whedon, who only did Buffy because they let him have Firefly. And they got rid of Firefly as quick as they could because they wanted Buffy. Anyway, Joss Whedon himself has turned into a shitbag in the last 5 years. But he started out pretty strong, and his original early work was really good. And Firefly, that is definitely a show that had fan quality. Like, it made fans. People really got into that show. It had everything. You know, it was a great sci-fi. It was great storytelling. It had a great world building. That's something I look for in a show, is world building. Who cares if you can write a good show or not? Show me the universe you create around your show. That's what's interesting. That's the thing you look at, like Blade Runner, for example. The world that guy built lasts for generations. People still talk about it, and movies are still trying to look like it even to this day. That universe was influential. The movie itself wasn't that good, but the universe he created around it, not unlike Firefly, by the way, they're in the same league. I loved the ship, the scripts, the pilot, and the shiny mechanic. Yeah, she was something else, wasn't she? That's my woman in a nutshell right there. She's getting all hot betwixt her nether regions. Try to say that out loud. I can hear it in my mind. It's hard to say. Twixt her nether regions. You own a Mal outfit and the pistol? Sweet. Yeah, I really like that guy as a character. Very Han Solo and a little Captain Kirk. A lot Captain Kirk, actually, be honest. But you want to talk about Star Trek's influence? Firefly wouldn't exist without Star Trek. That is the ground on which it was carved. Making Star Trek action is a death sentence. I agree with you, Diego. It's never been an action show. Like Sasquatch said, it's actually more akin to horror than anything else, or suspense. But it's definitely what's the word I'm looking for? You have to think. You know, it provokes thought. It's thought provoking. It's I can't think of the word. I keep thinking neurological, and that's not the word I'm looking for. It's in your head. You know, you have to think about it. And it is not about action. There may be action in it, and that's fine. But it's not a shoot 'em up, bang bang action thriller. You know, it's not supposed to be. Nothing twixt my nether regions weren't run on batteries. That's it. Ain't nothing been twixt my nether regions weren't run on batteries. I can't even say it, and I know what it is. weren't nothing twixt my nether regions weren't run on batteries. Had to slow her down. But that girl was some kind of sexy to me, and so was the prostitute, by the way. She played in the later adaptation of V: The Final Battle that came on television some years later. That is a sexy woman. She also played in what is that show with the redheaded guy who was in Afghanistan and came back as a Muslim? You know what I'm talking about? Homeland, is that it? What it's called? Homeland. She was in that show too, and she was in Brian Reynolds movie, Deadpool. No regions. Just nethers. Inara, that's her. That's a good-looking woman right there. The Lord blessed her all the way around. Anyway, that's enough for that science fiction talk. Thank you guys for joining me tonight. I would not cut it short, but I've got some mechanicking to do, and I need to get it done before I pass out. Deadpool, that's the one I was thinking of. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate everything you do and putting up with me trying new things, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's in my wheelhouse, and I dig that sort of thing, so among other things. And, you know, if this ain't your subject, just chill. We'll get to yours eventually. We'll come around to you, because we cover all kinds of things here at Untethered Live. You never know what we're going to talk about. Today, Star Trek. Tomorrow, the world. Take care of yourselves and each other. I appreciate you sticking it out, and I'll see you on Friday, and maybe I'll have a ride by then. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping to get the old Harley up on the highway before in the morning, so I don't have to pester my sister for a ride anymore. If you would, press all the buttons and do all the things. Smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, press the bell icon, share the video, leave a comment down below, and if you would, won't you please support me by going to paypal.me/JakeJohnsonBand. Every little bit helps, and I greatly appreciate the support. Have a great night. Happy Star Trek Day, and I will see you guys on Friday. Thanks for watching.